Let's get to the Bears. We know what they're going to do. And this is something that has been, debated for a while, really since the day that they drafted Justin Fields. Given his extended, playing time at Ohio State, he was far more refined than Trey Lance, who didn't play a whole lot of football. You can even make the case, maybe even a little bit more refined than Zach Wilson. Bit of a different skill set.
Yeah.
But he played a lot of football. He's a smart kid. He's a good player. He's got a lot of tools in the shed there. The Bears made a decision, which I'm fine with. The next 4 games are going to be very challenging. The only thing I wonder is, who really made the decision? I guess it doesn't really matter.
Bingo, BT. But
who made the decision?
I don't. I'm debating who made the decision. I think Nagy, you got to give him credit for making the decision. The question is, who influenced him to make the decision? Because let's not forget, the entire time, this is even before they drafted Justin Fields, Andy Dalton, QB1, and it was almost like he had in his mind, this is Coach Nagy, he had in his mind, no matter who we draft, it's going to be a project. And so from the beginning of the season, we're going with Andy Dalton. And Andy Dalton is a good quarterback, but he's not inspiring anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so right after they drafted Justin Fields, it was like, oh, this is a great pick. And this is fantastic. Look, he gets to sit behind Andy Dalton and grow. But then training camp comes along, and he looks amazing, at least with some of the big arm throws that he was making and maybe a little bit of the command of the offense, not necessarily the game plans and reading defenses and things of that nature. I'm not even going to speculate on that, but just his presence. Like, he has a leadership about him and the way he carries himself, Justin Fields. And you heard all these stories coming out of training camp. Man, everybody loves Justin Fields. Man, he could push Andy Dalton for the starting job, but Matt Nagy, steadfast refused to acknowledge it. And then ultimately, they start the season. Andy Dalton gets hurt after a couple of weeks, and he's still keeping the same mantra. Like, Andy Dalton's our starter. Andy Dalton's our starter. And after the first start with Justin Fields, where he got beat up and sacked 9 times and banged around, you could maybe have said, yeah, he's just not ready. But then you saw last week, where in 17 completions, he throws or 17 attempts, he throws for 209 yards. His yards per attempt it's out of this world at 12.3 yards per attempt, means throwing the ball down the field and completing some of those passes.
Yeah.
It was clear, all of that potential that we saw in training camp could happen this year, not just next year and let's wait. And I honestly think, BT, that he was pressured to make this decision. Because if you go back to Andy Dalton in that locker room, who's okay, but he dinks and dunks to 5.3 yards per attempt and is not really, he's no way the future. What are you actually telling the team? And so I think he was pressured to make this move, BT, even if it is ultimately the right one.
Yeah, I think it is the right one. I think really the pressure came from the tape from the last game.
Yes.
I'm not saying there wasn't another voice, like the GM. Say, all right, let's go, or veteran players, or maybe Nagy just came to the realization it's time here. But you talk about his leadership, and I thought it was really on display early, talking about Justin Fields, where during camp and during the summer, during preseason, he implored the fans not to boo Andy Dalton.
That's right. I remember
that.
Yeah, I do. I remember you brought it up. You pointed. I didn't think about it until you said it, and you're like, "Wait, that's actually leadership."
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
We're a team here, even if it means I'm not starting right now.
Yeah, it was just great self-awareness, but it was also a conviction in what's right for the team, for the greater majority of the locker room, and he was trying to avoid any division, avoid any awkwardness. And listen, deep down, he's confident in his skill set. He's out there. He knows that. Andy Dalton's in his 30s. Contractually, there's no real commitment. They didn't draft him. So he's smart enough to process that. And then, unlike Trey Lance had a big touchdown pass this weekend, but there was a blown coverage, wide open, just like there was during the preseason when I think it was Trey Lance's first pass.
Yes, it was.
Right, he threw a bomb. It may have been 80 yards, whatever it was. But watching Justin Fields connect this past Sunday, it was different. There were passes to the boundary where it was, out of bounds, cornerback, receiver in the middle, where the depth and the float had to be perfect. But once on the left side, once on the right side, you saw throws that were very high degree difficulty. And now He gets to take a little ownership of this offense. They'll tailor it more for his needs. It's not going to be easy. The next 4 games, Bears are in a playoff push. Bears 2-2, as you know. They've got the Raiders on the road, and the Raiders are going to be ticked off. They're home to Green Bay, not going to be easy. In Tampa, not going to be easy. Home to the 49ers. They could conceivably go 0-4.
Yes.
But they could also go 0-4 with Andy Dalton.
Yes.
So here we go.
And if you go 0-4 with Andy Dalton and you don't give Justin Fields a chance, you start to question, well, coach, you even know what the hell you're doing, right?
Yep.
You're losing these games, and you have this potential on the bench that you're just kind of ignoring. I think Matt Nagy, in an odd way, even though he probably didn't want to do this right now, is creating more runway for his job, right? Because if you have a young quarterback, and this is a story, it's an age-old story. I have a young quarterback. Let me develop and grow with this young quarterback. We all know the statistics of quarterbacks that end up changing head coaches and coordinators and all the bad things that come along with that. Let me develop him going forward. You guys hired me for a reason. We finally got our quarterback of the future, put that in quotes, and I'll be the guy that can develop him. I think it gives him more runway, to be perfectly honest with you. You know what I mean? And especially if he plays well, like if he starts playing great, Justin Fields, and they win a couple of those games. Again, it's a tough schedule, as you just mentioned, but say they steal some wins from some of these teams that they're supposed to lose to, and Justin Fields is the reason that they do so, and you see the development happening like that, which doesn't always happen, but let's just say it happens a little bit like that. Now, all of a sudden, we're not questioning whether Matt Nagy is the right coach for the Chicago Bears. So it almost serves him well to have made this decision, even though he wanted to delay it as long as possible.
But it's his last card.
That's exactly right. That's right. And he's playing it early, to your point.
He's playing it very early. He's all in. It's like, it's 7:27 in the casino, and this guy's got all his cards in the middle of the table. People just walking out of dinner, or actually just going to get a martini before dinner, and this guy's got all his chips in there. He's sweating, smoking. All right, come on, hit me. What's coming in the flop? What's hammering out of the chute here? Now, conversely, it could also go the other way.
That's right.
I think there was enough evidence in the last game where Justin Fields is going to really flay. He's going to score some rushing touchdowns. He's going to make some big gash throws down the field. I'd be stunned if over the next month there's not much more of a positive vibe around the quarterback position and the future of the Bears than a negative one. I fully anticipate it's going to be good, but I don't mean in terms of wins, but just in terms of that positive vibe, that belief, that conviction that they drafted the right guy and maybe Nagy's the right guy to coach him, as you said. But if it's not that, let's just say it's the opposite, then he's done. Because then there's nothing else to discuss. Well, you couldn't get it done with Trubisky. This kid, he flashed the first game he really played, and now all of a sudden he's been, training wheels or this pedestrian guy or worse than pedestrian for a month. Now the whispers and the grumblings are full out roars and pitchforks are out, and he could get fired midseason.
Yeah,
there's no in between.
I don't foresee that happening midseason. I think they'd give him the whole year, but it would be like a foregone conclusion type thing, and you know what I mean. But I think that Justin Fields is now has a humongous opportunity because he is such a great athlete that you can now tailor this offense to do things that fit him. Now, it's a big loss that they're losing David Montgomery for I don't know how many weeks it is now, but he's out with injury. So Damian Williams is now the starting running back there, who's a good player.
Yeah, he's good.
He's not David Montgomery. He's not as powerful or as forceful of a runner as David Montgomery is. So maybe that hurts him a little bit. But just think about how the offenses that Justin Fields ran at Ohio State. I'm not saying they're gonna push that up into the NFL now, but there's so many things you can do, right? The zone reads, the RPOs, the triple options, as I was describing to you yesterday. Like
with the tight end,
those type of things are now available, and you got to believe that Matt Nagy, who is thought of as one of these innovators, innovative thinkers at least, as an offensive caller and play designer, is going to start doing those things because it fits Justin Fields. I know every quarterback wants to, we want to put them all in this drop back passer mold, but early on in your career, just like with Josh Allen, we saw this. Kyler Murray, we saw this. Lamar clearly is doing this still. And give them a chance to be successful and feel good about being the leader. Like I think there's just so many more options for the Chicago Bears offense with Justin Fields as a quarterback. Despite Andy Dalton being healthy, Andy's limited. You know what I mean? There's just not much you can do with him other than be a good reader of defenses, make smart decisions, and be a drop back passer. But it's not inspiring to anybody.
No. And I would imagine there's been a huge jolt of enthusiasm in the building. No disrespect toward Andy. I mean, Andy's the kind of veteran, the kind of pro. There's a diligence. There's enough league-wide cachet. I don't mean in terms of, wow, Andy's really good. But, hey, we've got a guy who's he's going to study late. He's certainly competent, all that stuff. They respect him.
You want him on your team.
You want him on your team, preferably not as a starter at this point if you have Super Bowl plans. But you wouldn't mind having Andy Dalton on your team, no doubt. And by the way, next year will be team number 4 for Andy Dalton, which now paints this picture that he is the exact opposite of what the NFL's morphed into. So I'm thinking about your situations, and obviously with Kurt, when Kurt was benched for Eli. Eli was with the trade. First overall pick. Kurt was obviously a legend at that point. You guys had a winning record. He wasn't a legend with the Giants, but he was a legend within the NFL community based on what he did with the Rams. The Eli was a below average athlete in terms of wiggle.
And the game wasn't like that.
The game was different.
Even if he was a great athlete, it's not like they were going to do RPOs.
No, for sure. But I'm thinking about all the guys you played with, whether it's, the Kent Grahams, the Dave Browns, guys who just, let's be, no disrespect.
Danny Cannell
kind of kept the Giants back from being better than you guys were in some situations because your quarterback play outside of Kerry and eventually Eli was usually pretty poor. So you don't have that experience necessarily of when they make a move to a dynamic player, and there's this jolt in the locker room. But what do you think the Bears locker room is like right now?
Yeah, I think they're trying to rally around Justin Fields right now. This was announced this morning. I'm sure that in the team meeting before everything got started today. Matt Nagy, the head coach, told everybody, hey, look, going forward, Justin Fields is going to be our starter. I think it gives us the best opportunity to do some really impressive things this year, yada, 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 all the happy you-know-what.
Blah. Get to the point,
exactly.
Coach.
And everybody probably came up to Justin and was like, congrats, man. Congrats, young buck. Good luck. We got you on this. Even if there's going to be some struggles, we got you, man. Don't fear anything. Don't think that this is, it's all on you. We're going to, it's all here with us as well. So I think it was pretty uplifting. And the beauty of it, and I don't mean this as an antithesis or a converse to what Andy Dalton is. Justin Fields is like he gives you hope, man. He's just like exciting. He does some things, and they saw this all preseason. He does some things that just make you go, wow, right? And when you have a quarterback that makes you say, wow, there's just a better future in front of you. You know what I mean?
Listen,
so I think that it's the right move, and it's at the right time. Interestingly, they're 2-2. The season's not by any stretch of the imagination, it's not done. They can write their own destiny and write their own script, and I think Justin Fields is the right guy to take them there.
And at this point, Andy Dalton. I didn't even have these as a kid. I'm trying to think of an average. God, this is such an old reference. I don't think I ever had a pair of these either. But I know my dad did. Remember, you ever hear of Keds sneakers?
Yeah, of course.
Okay,
yeah, I remember the Keds.
All right, so Andy Dalton is like
$30.
Lower than that back then. You kid, much lower than that.
That's right.
Andy Dalton's like a pair of Keds. You can lace them up and you can still play sports, but you might not move as quickly. They're definitely not going to look as good. Justin Fields is the pair of Air Jordans, where you're going to lace them up, you're going to look good, you're going to have, and you're going to feel good, but there's no guarantee that you're going to be able to throw down dunks like Jordan just because they look the same way. But there's an energy, there's an enthusiasm, there's just a surge of something that you can't necessarily touch. You can't quantify it, but you just feel it. You feel it in the stands, you feel it in the media, you feel it on the radio. Bears fans are jacked up. It's the right choice, and we'll see where it takes us. But Raiders, Packers, Tampa, Niners. Welcome to the NFL, young man. Thanks for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe, and don't forget to hit that bell to be notified when we drop fresh content.